In this bonus lecture, I want to show you a side-by-side comparison. We're going to do a speed test of the traditional method, which is to take a range like this and plop whatever information you have in there one cell at a time. So A1 equals this, B1 equals this, C1 equals this value up until all 20 columns times, let's see, 100,000 rows are populated. And that method takes a long time, especially if you have a larger workbook. And if you have formulas or other things in that workbook, it'll take a really long time because everything has to recalculate after each cell is updated. Now, I know what you're thinking. Let me hit Control up here. There are ways of speeding up your macro by using screen updating or calculation equals, manual instead of automatic. Yes, we're going to explore those as well. But first, we're going to go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison. And the code is already written, so we're going to show you the speed test first. Alt F11, and I'll show you my speed test that I use. I have two procedures written, speed test 1, and I put that at the beginning of my code, and then I put some code here, and then traditionally I'll just type in speed test 2, and the other macro will run and finish up. Let me show you what that does in this show speed tests example. Let's hit F8. So speed test 1 here, basically there is a variable called start time, and that's going to be equal to timer, which is the number of milliseconds since midnight that have happened. So it'll take that, it'll plant that into a variable. Then we're going to take the variable start time and we're going to plug it into a hidden variable. See, the visible is false and the name is called my timer, which we'll then be able to utilize. It's kind of like a public variable, only we're literally storing this number of seconds or milliseconds or whatever since midnight. We're storing it in the names manager so that we can't lose it. Even if the workbook crashed or something, it would still be saved into the workbook. So we're going to save that there, and then we're going to plant that into the names manager. It has the value of this, this creates that variable, and this puts the value of that time inside of it. So, and then the second, once your procedure is done, then speed test 2 simply takes the elapsed amount of time by formatting all this and giving you the minutes elapsed. In this case, it's 1 minute and 1 second because I've been blabbing on. And then it does a message box. This code ran successfully in 1 minute and 1 second. And it also debugs it into the immediate window. That was something I just did for my own reasons. So you could take that out. I'll go ahead and take that out. Anyway, at speed, it looks like this. This code ran successfully in less than a second, basically. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a time lapse, meaning I'm not going to make you watch this painstakingly, but let me show you this really quick. So the time saver range code does the speed test. It gets the initial time. It's going to clear all the contents on this worksheet right here. Then it's going to go from 1 to 100,000 for each row. And then within each row, it's going to go from 1 to 20 columns. And then it's going to take that cell. So cell 1-1, then cell 1-2, and cell 1-3, and etc. And it's going to get a random number between 1 and 20,000 and plug it in there. So it's going to be completely random, but it's going to be approximately the same amount of time because of system memory can easily pull a random number out. So let's go ahead and run this one really quick, and I'll resume after the message box comes up. So I'm going to hit play. And we're back. This code ran successfully in 49 seconds, basically. So I'm going to hit OK. Very good. So the first run was 49 seconds. Now, this one's time saver array instead of time saver range. So this one is going to be exactly the same, except for we're making an array 1 to 100,000 and 1 to 20 columns. And we're doing the same thing, except we're not using the cells object here. We're going to use the array. And we're going to do everything exactly the same except for that. So instead of popping them onto each cell one at a time, we're going to save them all up into our array, which doesn't take much system memory to do. And then whenever we have our array, we're going to pop that array into range A1 resized by whatever the dimensions of the array are. So we'll just, at one foul swoop, we'll take everything and pop it in there. So, and then of course it clears all the cells out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and run this one and see how much time it takes. Okay, this one ran successfully in just 13 seconds. So that's already a pretty huge improvement, right? Now let's go ahead and review what we've got here. Let's see, we had 49 seconds, I believe. and then the array took 13 seconds. So if we can take a look at this chart really quick, just doing the array version and then planting that information from the array directly onto the range took only 13 seconds, 21% of the whole combined amount, but 49 seconds. In earlier testing, it was like 53 or something seconds. So it was even a larger blue area of doing it the traditional method. And with more data and more formulas in your workbook and things, this gap would be even wider. Okay, now we want to show you one other test. Now we're going to take it one step further because we do want to optimize and make our code as efficient as possible. So let's zoom to the very bottom here. We have this similar information. We have timer save range underscore screen. So this one applies the techniques of taking application.screen.updating equals false and application.calculation equals manual, basically manual mode, and the screen does not update. You will not see this clear out because it wastes precious memory doing all those things. And then of course, right before the message box pops up, we make screen updating available again, and so we can see the changes, as well as calculation is now allowable again, and it's automatic. And then we'll do the same thing for the array version. So let's see how much time that the range version does whenever we're going back and popping them one cell at a time, but we're turning off screen updating. Here we go. Okay, so this one ran successfully, and it's a little bit less time. I think this was like 10 seconds less, 39 seconds instead of 49. Pretty good, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll log that in a minute. 39. All right, I'm going to type 39 in my immediate window so I can remember. Now let's go to the array version. Same deal, except it's an array now. So let's hit play. Okay, we're back. It looks like this one ran in the exact same amount of time, in 13 seconds, even though screen updating was turned off and calculation was set to manual mode. That tells me one thing. If it's 13 seconds for this regardless, and it's 38 or 39 seconds for this, so you notice that the array was constantly 13 seconds. It looks like an array uses system memory very efficiently, unlike using cells and things like this, which they have a lot more duties. Obviously, they have to realize the formatting, whether or not there are formulas that need to be updated as a result of a cell being changed and things like that. But the responsibilities, if you will, of a single element of an array are little to none. They don't need to react. They don't need to fire events. They don't need to regulate whether or not certain cells update their formulas. They are very simple. So that's why they're so optimized to take very little time to update. So this is why using arrays can be very, very quick and optimize your code, make it very quick. So again, it may seem like 13 seconds is even a long time, but if you consider that 100,000 rows times 20, so that's 4 million cells have been populated in just 13 seconds. And that's with calculations being performed on all of them to get these random numbers. So that's actually pretty awesome. This workbook is available for download. So if you look in the download section in the upper left hand or under resources, if you're using a mobile, you should be able to easily download this workbook and play around with it and do your own speed tests. Also, please note that you can utilize my speed test macro, which is, let's see, speed test 1 and then using speed test 2 at the end of your macros. You can use that all you want. That's of course free to use it with the template, so you'll be able to do your own speed test without having to go on Google and figure out how to do that. All right, we'll see you in the next lecture. Thanks for watching.